There's a great article up today on Niners Nation by Kyle Posey. I don't know if you read this, but it just came up, I believe, maybe a day or two ago. One area where Brock Purdy performed like a top five quarterback. Um, and he basically just says, hey, Brock Purdy has proven to be one of the more mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, and his ability to avoid sacks when pressured has been elite. I don't know if you looked at it, but if you look at Purdy's numbers from this last year, and this is according to Next Gen Stats, Purdy was pressured 37% of the time, and he was blitzed at a 31% clip last year, both of which were ninth most in the NFL.
Wow.
So he was pressured at the ninth highest rate. He was blitzed at the ninth highest rate. Okay, so it is interesting. And Brock has a propensity to hold the ball and take unnecessary hits and sacks last year when the offensive line did not hold up. According to PFF, Purdy had one of the worst sack rates versus actual dropbacks in the league last year. But it's his ability to avoid negative plays under pressure that was stellar. Purdy finished 11th in non-running back rushing yardage this past season, despite having significantly fewer rushing attempts than most players ahead of him. He was among the league leaders in the NFL in scramble yardage, which tells you he can create on his own, and he can flip those negative plays into first downs. He finished 12th in sack percentage last year among quarterbacks who threw at least 200 passes, but he was 5th in EPA loss per sack, telling you how well Purdy's sack avoidance was in 2024. The EPA lost on sacks is basically how the players were ranked in this thing. So anyway, it basically kind of shows that Brock Purdy has handled pressure. He's gotten a lot of pressure, but he's handled it. And yet the 49ers you would think, would want him to be under less pressure and would be real eager to upgrade their offensive line. And maybe they're just in lying season and they're trying to do a misdirection. But they've come out this week and been like, hey, man, we're doubling down on McKivitz. We're doubling down on Brendel. We feel like those guys are good. And yet, once again, Brock Purdy was pressured at the ninth highest clip in football last year. So, and Brendel, I believe the Niners were second worst as far as pressure rate at center, pressure rate allowed from the center position. So,
Yep.
How do you make sense of the Niners, approach where it's like, it seems like everybody and their brother knows the Niners need to improve their offensive line. Everybody except the Niners.
Their approach to the offensive line legitimately drives me crazy. And it is something that I think about on a near weekly basis. You think back to what has happened under this regime of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Bad offensive line play has cost them and hurt them consistently in the biggest of games over the last few years. In the 2021 NFC Championship game against the Rams, the 49ers could not handle that Rams defensive line. How did that game end? When Aaron Donald got to Jimmy Garoppolo, he was forced to get rid of it quickly, bounced off of JaMychal Hasty, intercepted, game over. In 2022, in the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles, what happened? They could not handle the Eagles defensive line that year led the NFL with 70 sacks, 15 more than any team. And I know that Tyler Kroft was blocking Hassan Reddick, but if you had better offensive line play, you would have held up better in that game. And maybe Hassan Reddick doesn't come screaming off the edge to injure Brock Purdy's elbow. Otherwise, I think the 49ers go into Philadelphia and they win that game. What happened in 2023 when the Niners made it to the Super Bowl? Brock Purdy was under siege throughout that entire game against Kansas City. And what happened on the biggest play of the game at that juncture? Nobody blocked Chris Jones, unblocked, right in Brock Purdy's grill. Had to get rid of it to Juwan Jennings, where if he had one more second, Brandon Ayuk crossed the DB up and was wide open in the end zone. And that's why it's insane to me how I'll tweet out videos of me saying the Niners need to improve their offensive line. And you have the Rich Madrids of the world who will respond to me saying they made it to the Super Bowl with Jake Brendel and Colt McKivitz. They're not the problem. Well, they gave up, 20 to 25 pressures against Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and 9 of them were unblocked. I know that Kyle Shanahan can change his drop back game. I know that Kyle Shanahan can change his pass and scheme protections. But the Niners offensive line has not been good enough. And what bothers me is that the Niners seem to be content with the offensive line just being okay. And I get that we're in a salary cap era and the Niners are paying a lot of players big time dollars and they try to get cheap along the offensive line. But Jake Brendel, while he's durable, while he's a good run blocker, when he has to go up against some of the better defensive tackles in the game, his anchor is not strong enough. I mean, he gets bulldozed, and there are a lot of bad reps on tape. Colton McKivitz 2 years ago gave up 47 pressures. Last year, did he improve? For sure. But Colton McKivitz and Jake Brendel were still, according to Pro Football Focus, some of the lowest graded players at their positions in key categories. And it's cost this Niners team. And the other thing that blows my mind, if Brock Purdy weren't so mobile, if Brock Purdy didn't have those spidey senses in the pocket,
he's making them look better than they are.
Flip out of the pocket like a Tony Romo back in the day and make plays happen improvisationally out of structure, the offensive line numbers would be even worse. And so they invested a second rounder in Aaron Banks. He got paid. I'd never pay him that. They traded for Trent Williams. They paid him a lot of money. Good on you. But to try to get by at center with Jake Brendel and at right tackle with Colton McKivitz, and then at left guard, it could be a competition between Ben Barch and Spencer Burford. They're trying to get creative with financial dollars being allocated to those positions in a creative way where they're not spending that much money, where I just think they have to bring in better players. And look, they brought in Weston Richburg. He played well. He got hurt. They paid Alex Mack. He played well. He retired. But over the last couple of years, like, this offensive line has really cost them. And I just hate how they're just content with it being an okay unit. If the Niners were to go up against the Philadelphia Eagles, especially that defensive line that they had last year, Brock Purdy would be running for his life. They would have no shot. This upcoming season, if Jake Brendel has to match up against Jalen Carter, if Colton McKivitz has to go up against a Nolan Smith or an Aiden Hutchinson, we've seen him struggle against the likes of TJ Watt. Like, he gets exposed. Jake Brendel gets exposed when they play against some good talent. So the offensive line philosophy, it just drives me insane. That can change in the NFL draft. It can change, and I hope it does. But as of right now, for them to say, oh, yeah, we like Jake Brendel. He was good last year. We like Colton McKivitz. It's just not good enough, in my opinion.
And it's not even your opinion. I mean, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't good enough. You won 6 games. You know, I mean, your quarterback has got great mobility. Did you see how bad the Niners offense looked when they had to go with their backup quarterback who didn't have mobility? It was terrible. It was awful. They had no shot at all. They were almost not worth watching.